In 2009, I was 30 years old. Life was pretty good. I was enjoying my job. I was enjoying my family life. I remember the wife and I were just talking about how good life was. And then I was injured at work. I'm Mike Rousselle. I'm a husband, a father of 3, and I'm an injured worker. On the day of my accident, I was a sub-foreman working for Aero Installations. We do lots of line maintenance, new construction, live line work, changing out poles while the line's still energized. So basically we were trying to get a bucket truck in to go up a pole to change a fuse for the line. It was a tight spot, and I think it was snowing or raining that morning. And I'm pretty sure the bucket truck got stuck, and it was the end of the day. And I basically said to the guy I was with, I'll just climb it and get it while we're out here, and then we don't have to ever come back. The guy I was working with had his back to me when it happened, so he said he just heard a big, like an arc or a big bang, I guess, and he turned around and he seen there was a big ball of fire around me. He said it felt like it lasted forever, and then he said it finally went out, and then I went unconscious.
I received a phone call around 3 o'clock that Mike had been in an accident. It wasn't too serious. He would probably just need some skin grafting, and he was in the hospital in Fernie. And just to hang tough, they were going to transfer him to Cranbrook within the hour. And as I waited, the phone calls kept coming in, and every call got worse and worse.
I got a phone call, I think it was at 12:30 that night, and he said, I got some bad news. They had to take Mike's arm off. And that was when it was like, okay, this is bad. And it was almost surreal. I couldn't believe that happened.
I remember thinking, well, he has children and he has to work, and how are we going to continue on with life if he doesn't have an arm? And you told me you were just going to skin graft his hand.
You get the phone call later, they had to take his leg. You just kept thinking, like, this can't be real.
The only thing I could think about was, I'm not going to be able to be the same guy. I'm not going to be able to be active. I'm not going to be able to play sports. I won't be able to go back to work. It's devastating. You get this feeling of like, you're going to be nothing.
And I can remember walking in the room, and he was just so devastated. And I would think, like, that's not Mike. That's not the Mike I was married to and who we had built a life together. So it was like we had to slowly learn together what this new Mike was going to be.
First month in the Calgary hospital, I was strictly in the burn unit. And then the second month, I exercised every day. I worked on balance, strengthening muscles that I would need for walking with a prosthetic leg. I think about a month into the hospital in Calgary, WorkSafe came and visited, and they basically said everything's taken care of, and there was never any pressure to go back to work. It was like, you know what, when you're ready, you come talk to us and we'll work through what you need, and you'll be able to get back to work when you want. Once I finished rehab in Calgary, it was suggested to me that I should go to Vancouver to go to GF Strong. First few months, I was just focused on walking, getting back to walking. And as soon as I started to feel good again, it was like, okay, the next step, I gotta get back home, spend time with my family, relax, and just taking a break. And I did that for a year. There was a point where I was back home, I was done with GF Strong, I was starting to live my life, and I had another worker that was hurt 30 years ago, and it's exactly the same injury as me. He pretty much gave me the best advice I could have. Forget about the old you. That's not there anymore. If you can learn to forget about him and focus on the new you, you'll be able to move forward. And that was the best advice I had. After that, it was I'd find a goal, and then I'd attack that goal, and that was the reason why I decided to come back to work, because I was in a new me, new goals to set and achieve. With work, when Mike would come and visit me, it was always, we'll always have a spot for you, and he'd always ask me, what's your plans? Do you want to come back to work? Do you want to just not work? And I was like, oh no, I want to come back to work. It was just a matter of what it was going to be. Like, it was so unknown at the time, but it was good to know that I was going to be looked after.
When Mike was ready to come back to work, he was gung-ho. I was keen too, right? It was exciting. It was great. And with WorkSafeBC and the Return to Work program, it's there for a reason. And at the time, I didn't understand it. I thought, oh, this is restrictive, right?
They said, you know what, you need to slow down. There's precautions, there's steps that you need to take, there's plans. And I always thought it was I'm like, that's not me. And now that I look back, I'm glad that they approached me and they came up with a plan for me. They really looked out for my well-being, and I didn't see that at first. And now I'm in the situation I am. I do see that was a big part of coming back to work. The first step was going to work. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea where my place would be at Arrow. I just knew I had to come and start. And it was basically a trial and error. It was try, code course, design, try quoting jobs, doing estimates, and I tried all those things, and I'm like, no, this isn't for me. I don't like this. I'm not an office person. I can't sit in a desk all day. I come in when I please. I would, leave when I wanted to. I had no responsibility at work, really. I was just there. My wife could see I wasn't happy. She's like, this isn't for you. You got to find something different. She goes, maybe you should leave Arrow and find a different field of work. And I was like, no, I love my job. I love being in the field. I love working in my trade, and I needed to get closer to that. And when one of the general foremans retired, it was like, that's the role I need to go, because I still get to be a part of the field and I still get to be a part of the office. And I thought that was the best fit.
I know Mike would like nothing better than to be back out on the tools, running a crew and building power lines. That's what he likes doing. And he's gotten to a point where he is out with the crews. And he's also doing a whole bunch of other things that are integral to the business running. He's stepped up in a big way.
I think if it wasn't for Mike, I don't think I'd be able to have that return as smoothly as I have. I've been very fortunate that I've get the position I get, and I've got to do a trial and error type thing, and he's always supported that. Arrow could put all the things they need to put in place. WorkSafe can put everything in place for you, but if your attitude's not there, it's not going to work. You can make two choices. You can have an attitude where life sucks and poor me, or you can have the attitude where you're going to get up and you're going to make the best of what you got. And I'd rather be happy than be miserable. And that's a huge thing to my belief in life and how I should live.
When you see Mike, seeing somebody without an arm or without a leg, it's not something you see every day. And being able to just be around him and just see, it's opened a lot of people's eyes as to what people are capable of.
Before my accident, I did do mixed martial arts. I decided to try it again, and I realized it was something I enjoy doing every lunch hour. It's a great workout, and I get to do what I was doing before. And I do it differently, but I still get to do it, and you need to see that side of it.
I'm really proud of Mike. Really proud. I know there was some days where long days. I worried for him, but I'm really proud of him. Yeah, he hasn't ceased to amaze me yet.
I'm quite pleased with where I'm at. Being that I'm half in the field, half in the office, I get the best of both worlds, really, and I get to do what I was doing before, just in a different way. If I was talking to an injured worker that's stuck in a position where they don't know where they want to go, is you have to be patient. You have to take the help from people and understand that it's a progression, it's a process, and you have to try. Don't be afraid to try, and don't be afraid to fail. You're gonna fail. You're not gonna get it every time. But if you keep trying, eventually, if you're patient, you will get there, and you will find something that you can feel happy with yourself and get back to work and enjoy your life.
I see Mike now, 3 years later, when he comes home from work, and he feels like, yeah, Arrow needs me. If I don't come tomorrow, things will not work properly. I need to be there.
You need to find that no matter what it is, and I found that, and now I'm back to where I was before the accident, where I enjoy my life. I'm happy. I love my family, and I love going to work.